Hi there, I am Sam, and I'm filming my first ever Letterboxd what I watched. What I watched in March, and I did my own March Madness, where I watched a movie every single day in March, sometimes two. I think there was one day there was three, but two of the movies were shorts, so I would like to go over that. Today's April 1st, and it's the first time I have any time alone right now, so I'm taking advantage. I'm going to try this out. So one of my favorite YouTube people is Horrible Reviews. I have been watching him the longest before I even know YouTube had like a bunch of movie people on it. So when I worked at this like telecommunications place in 2012, that's when I discovered him, and I just really love his stuff. But he came out with the video recently what he watched in 2021, so I took a few of his recommendations and I watched on the 1st of March Holy Flame of the Martial World, and it's a kung fu movie, and it was really colorful and fun but extremely fast, and when you're reading subtitles it was a little bit difficult to keep up with, but it was still really visually fun to watch. On the 2nd of March I watched 127 Hours, and I've had this movie on my to-watch list for a really long time, and I love Danny Boyle movies, so I kind of want to watch them all, and this was definitely one I wanted to see. So I watched my cat is gonna jump up here. Come on. Watched that one. I really liked it a lot. I didn't know if I would, because it doesn't seem like a lot would be going on in that movie with just the whole movie surrounding the one incident, but since there's enough hours of content. On the 3rd I watched Mirror, which is by Andrei Tarkovsky, and I've heard that, he makes some great movies. I wanted to check one out. Really didn't care for that movie. It was so boring in my opinion. Anywho, I gave that 2 stars. The 127 Hours I gave 5. I was very generous there, but I really loved it. And Holy Flame I gave 3. So also on the 3rd of March I watched Eyes of Fire, which was another Horrible Reviews recommended movie. That was a lot of fun. Really loved it. Witchy and some like genuinely scary imagery in there. I really loved it. Practical effects were pretty cool. On the 4th I watched The Runner, which is Boy Harsher's short film, and I did not care for that. I thought it was like a lot of things I've seen before, and there was one like song/music video in there that I really liked a lot. Stop. And I watched The Scary of 61st on the 4th as well, and I didn't care for that one either. That was just had a good concept, but I did not appreciate all of the spit in it. It was gross. I watched Dark Man on the same day, on March 4th, and that was cool. I really love Sam Raimi. And Liam Neeson was not the best in it, but it was cool to see his humble beginnings. And yeah, it was just some cool stuff to see in that movie. On the 5th of March, I watched The Gift, which I've seen once before, but I felt like rewatching that. It's a good movie. I gave that one 3.5 stars. On the March 6th, I watched Dracula Untold. I've seen that one before, and I did not really like it this time around. It was just a lot of Dracula hugging his family. I was like, when's the next hug scene coming? Because he's just constantly hugging his son and his wife. On the 7th of March, I watched Inside, the French movie, and That was pretty cool, although there was um, a lot, a lot happening. Like they just kept introducing new characters, and it was just getting a little out of hand. Like they could have, made it a little more simpler. I felt like it would have been more effective in that way. On March 8th, I watched Raw, another French movie. I really liked it, actually. I thought it had some cool um, artistic choices, especially like with the paint when they're all like covered in paint. I thought that was really cool looking, simple and easy, but it really works well on film. On the 9th of March, I watched The Prestige. I've seen that one in theaters when it first came out, and that was really good. I thought that was awesome. Uh, on the 10th, I watched The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism. That movie has some pretty awesome imagery in it as well. Like, I really wasn't expecting it to be that cool. I really liked it. And then the girl in the end is wearing this purple dress that is amazing. Such a beautiful dress on a beautiful girl. On the 10th, on the 11th, I watched Chinatown, which for some reason I thought that movie was set in the 50s, like the actual movie itself, but it's like I thought it was made in the 50s, but it was made in the 70s, and it was cool. I don't know how I feel about Roman Polanski, so I didn't even realize that was his movie until I was watching it, but I love Jack Nicholson, so I wanted to check that out for a long time. I liked it. I gave 3.5. Sorry I'm not giving all these stars for all of them, but you can kind of gauge what I'm doing. March 12th, I watched I Love You, Philip Morris, because I'm a big fan of Ewan McGregor. I love Jim Carrey too. Well, love is a strong word, but I like him. So I love Ewan McGregor though. And I loved I Love You, Philip Morris. I thought it was really cool, entertaining, funny. On the 13th of March, I watched Fresh because everybody's talking about it, and it was okay. I didn't really like it that much, though. I've seen a lot of that kind of stuff before. 14th, I watched Transylvania 65000, which has a lot of heavy hitters in it, like Jeff Goldblum and some other tall, skinny dudes. And it wasn't funny. It was horribly unfunny. And it could have been good, but it wasn't. On the 15th, I watched The Changeling, which was such a cool setting, like, beautiful setting. And at the end, I was a little bit taken back because if you have not seen it, I won't say, but the setting, something happens to it, and I was like, oh my god, is that real? Is that real? Because that's not fair. On the 16th, I watched Phoenix Rising, so it's technically not a movie, but it counts, and that was good. I don't know how much you can really say you like something like that, but it was definitely interesting to watch. On the 17th of March, I watched The City of Lost Children. I had started it, and I was like, I think I've seen this before, and I have seen it, but it was sort of not something I retained in my memory, but it was good. I really like that director. Let me see what his name is. Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro made that movie. I really love that guy's movies. I've seen Amelie, of course, and then The Delicatessen, and I just like his steampunk distortion kind of style. On the 18th, I watched From Dusk Till Dawn, a movie I've seen bits and pieces of my entire life but never watched all the way through, and I didn't really care for it, actually. I gave it 2.5, so like right down the middle, but it was rather tasteless, I guess. Like, it just wasn't my kind of movie. I love Quentin Tarantino's stuff, Robert Rodriguez, but I don't know. George Clooney, he's overrated. He's not really that great of an actor. I thought his acting sucked. And I didn't like Quentin Tarantino's character as far as like his morals, they were not good. But the end gets really cool, and it's cool that Tom Savini is in it. I was like, he looks so familiar to me, and then I figured out it was him, and I was like, it's so cool to see him. And of course, he did all of the special effects and the makeup, and it was so cool. I like that. But yeah, not my favorite movie. On the 19th, I watched Steve Jobs purely because it's a Danny Boyle film. I could care less about Steve Jobs. I'm not an Apple person, as you can tell by this quality of the camera. And it was okay. It was nothing but talking. And yeah, I gave that one 2.5. That's right down the middle. On the 20th, I watched Hellbender on Shudder. I really liked the imagery in there, but the story itself was a little bit on the boring side for me. I thought it was relying a little too much on like the almost music video like quality of it, which I like the music in it. I thought the music was really good. Yes. And on the 21st, I watched Dead and Buried. That was kind of a throwaway, like, whatever, I'll put it on. And there were some really cool elements to it that I liked, but it reminded me a lot of, like, a Stephen King adaptation type of movie. I guess it has nothing to do with him, though, but, it's like a coastal town that gets... There's some weird shit that happens there. March 22nd, I watched Death at a Funeral, which I love that movie. The original. I've seen the remake, the American remake, and it's the same exact movie, but I prefer the original. I watched that, and then later that day, I really wanted to go to the movies because it was like $5 movie day. So Jackass Forever was still playing, and I'm a big Jackass fan, but I'm also like sort of boycotting it because Bam Margera is not included, and I'm a big Bam Margera fan. I know that he's controversial. He does a lot of messed up stuff and is unforgivable, but I don't feel like there is a Jackass without Bam. And so I didn't really care. I liked it, I laughed and all that, but I didn't care for the shunning of him. They gave tribute to Ryan Dunn at the end, and then they said nothing about Bam. Like, that was tasteless in my opinion, because, or tasteless maybe not, but it just wasn't right in my opinion. The man's going through some shit, and I think ever since Ryan Dunn passed away, he's been going through some shit, but so I was mad about that. But other than that, it was funny, I guess. On the 23rd, I watched Miss 45, which I loved. I loved everything about that movie. I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie because the music wasn't so great. It was very odd, actually. But beside that, I really loved that movie. I like all these 70s and early 80s movies are just like, they're doing it for me right now. And there's some really cool scenery in that. The characters are really great as well. On the 24th, I watched The Godfather, which was actually on March 24th, 1972 is when The Godfather came out, and me and my boyfriend slash husband had been meaning to watch The Godfather, and so we actually just watched it that day, and I give that 4 stars. Like, I would say it's like a perfect movie, but in a way I found it slightly boring at times. Yeah, I know that's not what people want to hear, but 4 stars for me. On March 25th, I watched Coyote Ugly. That was a throwback for me because I just loved that movie, and I was craving something more lighthearted, easygoing, and with a lot of good music in it. On the 26th, I watched The Beast with Five Fingers, and that was really good. I watched this show Spenguli every Saturday night. You may or may not have heard of it, but he plays classic horror movies and does, like, funny skits in between. And so that's what they showed, and I really thought the story was great. It has to do with a severed hand, and the setting was awesome. Just a really cool movie. I gave that 4 stars. Also watched Bad Vegan that weekend. And all I gotta say is, how can somebody be that stupid? How could you be that gullible? I don't get it. And on the 27th, I watched The Godfather Part 2, and I sort of enjoyed that one a little bit more because it was less boring, in my opinion. But I would definitely say that, yeah, it's like a one whole movie, The Godfather and Godfather Part 2. I think that's why they named it Part 2, but they go well together, and I feel like that's how they should be viewed, very shortly after one another. I gave that one 4 stars as well. I love mobster stuff, but it's not my absolute favorite, so that's why I didn't give it 5 stars, but I still liked it a lot. On the 28th, I watched Southbound, which I've heard great things about. I didn't like it. I thought each story left me with something to be desired, like information mostly. I think that's what they were going for. It was like a really mysterious, like, you can't know everything. You just have to jump right in and go halfway with all of it. Half-assed, and I didn't like that. 29th, I watched Asylum, which is 1972, and like I said, I'm just loving that era right now. The settings are so rich and cool, and the decoration and the actual asylum in this movie was just really neat, and the characters are really rich and full of personality. Really appreciate that. On the 30th, I watched The Fanatic, which is Fred Durst's movie, starring John Travolta and Devon Sawa. Devon Sawa looks so different, first of all. He looks like he belongs in action movies, but I don't know if he even acts much in movies anymore. It was a really bad movie, but it was fun to watch it. And I want to watch it again. I felt like it was just like, there were parts in it where there's just nothing going on, really. So that was a little boring. It could have been a good short. Whenever I think a movie is really boring, I think, you know what, if they knew how to cut it down and actually just make it into something short, it would be way more effective. I am not very patient, though, so. And on the 31st, I watched Trance, which was my third Danny Boyle movie of March, and it was really good. James McAvoy is in it, and Rosario Dawson, and Vincent begins with a C. Vincent Cassel, the French actor. I appreciated all of the performances, and Danny Boyle's movies are just really entertaining, in my opinion. Steve Jobs was entertaining, but it wasn't, like this like action-packed like I'm used to seeing in Danny Boyle movies, so. Alright, so that was it. And so my best views of the month were The Godfather, Godfather Part 2, and all the like 70s and early 80s movies I watched. I got the most fun out of anything with like a really awesome house in it. The Beast with Five Fingers has an awesome house in it. Asylum, The Changeling. Those ones I really liked. And then the worst movie I saw by far was Transylvania 65000. That movie was painful to get through. And then like The Runner and The Scary of 61st. Really, really bad. So, yeah, thank you for checking this out, and I know I have the like worst quality video here, but this is what I thought would be alright for now. So, anywho, thank you for watching. Let's say bye to Paul, Polly baby, and have a good night.